All right, sounds perfect. Well, can everyone see my screen? All right. So as and I alluded to, my name is Michael Morgan. I have experience on both sides of the table, so I'm happy to be here and presenting to you to help you land your dream jobs at this career fair, at any career fair in general. I'll go through the agenda for the presentation I want to go through today, but just want to I want to make this interactive. I don't want to just talk to everybody for the next hour. So I want to make sure that you're engaged. If you have questions at any time, feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions, put questions in the chat. To kick things off, I do want to engage people. So how many people on the call today are going to the National Black MBA Conference this year that will be in DC? Let's see. I see a few yeses. Nice. Okay, I see some people will be missing it this year. I'm sorry, Divine, that you won't be there. Cindy will be going. Um, all right, and then for those that are going, is this your first time going to this conference, or have you been to National Black MBA Conference before? Feel free to put in the chat if this is your first time going. All right, Cindy's been there before. It's first time for Raquel. Okay. Seeing some really good responses. So, regardless if you've been to this conference before or not, or if you've been to any career fair in general, I have some great tips and advice that you can execute. I want to make sure to leave you with some call to action so that you can make the most use of this conference. I've been to this conference myself as an attendee looking for job opportunities. And then I've also attended this conference on behalf of different companies that I've worked for to do recruiting and hire diverse talent. So I've seen both sides of the table, and I'm going to share some of my experiences, share my tips, knowledge to make sure that you're making the most of this conference or out of any conference in general that you may go to when you're searching for career opportunities. But for the presentations I'm going through today, first and foremost, I want to talk about the preparation before the conference. So just because the conference hasn't started yet doesn't mean you can't do your due diligence. There are definitely steps you should be taking starting today to get ready for the conference. I'll tell you tips and advice during the conference, things that you should do once the conference is over. And then, like I said, I want to give you specific call to actions to take at the end of this call today that you can implement so that you can reach your goals. And then, like I said, I want to leave time at the end for any questions, answers that you may have. But like I said, if you have questions during, feel free to ask questions in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself, and I want to answer all of your questions. So before the conference, so I have a lot of things on this slide. I'll get through them all. But like I said, don't wait until the conference. You can start doing your due diligence now. So first and foremost, I would say get your elevator pitch ready. So if you don't know what an elevator pitch is, it's a 30-second blurb about yourself. What are your work experiences? What's your educational background? What are you interested in? So at this career expo, there will be hundreds of companies that will all have their own booths. They'll all have their own tables. And when you walk up to a company and you talk to the representatives, generally you will start with an elevator pitch. And this will open up the door for further conversation. So as an example, I went to this conference when I was an MBA student at Carnegie Mellon University. When I walked up to tables, I would say, "Hi, my name is Michael Morgan. I'm a first year MBA student at Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon University. I'm concentrating in operations, strategy, and organizational behavior. I'm greatly interested in your supply chain program. Can you talk to me about it further?" Boom. That's a 30-second blurb. In that blurb, I gave them what my background is. I went to Carnegie Mellon. I told them what I'm concentrating in. I showed that I have an interest in a specific program within that company, and this can open up the door for further conversation. They can ask me questions about what classes I'm taking at Carnegie Mellon, why I'm interested in supply chain, what is my work experience. but I've given them an initial blurb that opens up the door to conversation. The same thing, and your elevator pitch will change over time. So if I go up to, if I attend the conference today and I say, I'll go talk to a company representative, I would say, "Hi, my name is Michael Morgan. I'm interested in roles in strategy and supply chain. I have previous work experience at Amazon, Walmart, Chevron, and JP Morgan. I noticed that you have this role in procurement, supply chain. I'd love to talk to you about it further." So I've given them my background. They know the places that I've worked, they know what I'm interested in, and I'm starting to ask questions. And I've highlighted what specific roles at that company that I want to talk to you about further. So it's good for you to have that elevator pitch down so that you can go and talk to these companies and you have a good initial conversation. So I'll give you an example. There are a lot of times where I will go when I was working for companies and I would go to booths and I'm trying to identify talent and people will walk over and say, "Hi, my name is Joe. What do you have to offer me?" That's not a good starting of a conversation. I don't know their background. I don't know their skill set. I don't know what they're interested in. And they clearly haven't done their research on what roles are available with my company. So you want to have an elevator pitch ready where you can give a concise answer and give details on your education background, your work experience, what you're interested in, and that can lead to a further conversation. But if you don't have a good elevator pitch, it will pigeonhole you and it will hurt the initial conversation. First impressions are everything. So if you have a good elevator pitch, it will make a world of difference. Okay? Secondly, resume. You definitely want to make sure you update your resume. So, question for everyone in the on the call today: how many people use resume writers? But yes or no in the chat if you use resume writers. Okay, I'm seeing a few no's. I do see one yes. Okay. So regardless if you use a resume writer or not, you definitely want to make sure your resume is up to date for the conference. If you're interested in resume writers, I use a resume writer. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm willing to share my contact. Believe I spent maybe $400 on a resume writer. But if a resume writer can help you get your dream job and help you potentially make an additional $10,000, $20,000 a year, in hindsight, $400 is a good investment. But you want to make sure you update your resume. Some of the items that I recommend that will make you stand out when it comes to your resume. Uh, I love when people bold the most important items on their resume. You have to understand most companies look at your resume for maybe 30 seconds. I don't have time to read every single line on your resume. So if you're bolding the most important things, hey, I saved $10 million. Hey, I generated $5 million in revenue. I reduced cycle time by 80%. If you bold those items, I will quickly gravitate to those specific areas. And that way I'll know where I need to look to get the most critical information. But you want to make sure your resume is up to date and tailor your resume for the roles that you're applying for. Look at the job description of the roles you're applying for and make sure that you're highlighting how you have the experiences that can show that you can do the job itself. So make sure that your resume is up to date and ready to go for the conference. And then at the conference, you will have the opportunity to interview with different companies. So you want to make sure that you get your STAR stories ready. For those that don't know what STAR stands for, it's an acronym. It stands for situation, task, action, result. So it's a way to respond to interview questions. If someone asks me, tell me about a time that you had to deal with a difficult customer, I would respond by giving them a situation where I worked with a difficult customer in my work experience. I would provide the background. I would explain what the situation was. I would say what my task was. I would describe what the action that I took, and then I would list what the results were of my action. So make sure to think through your work experiences, write out different STAR stories, have them prepared, have them ready. some of the recommendations that I give: one, make sure you're answering the question at hand. There are a lot of times where I interview candidates and I'll ask them a question and they're giving me an answer that doesn't answer my question at all. And I have to stop them in mid-interview and repeat the question, and then I ask them to make sure that they're actually answering my question. If you need to ask the interviewer, hey, can you repeat the question, or hey, just so I make sure that I understand the question, uh, my interpretation of the question is that you want to know this. Is that correct? You can ask them for those further up just to make sure that you're understanding what they're asking for, so you're properly answering the question. But I see that happen all the time where people are giving me answers that don't answer the question. Whenever possible, if when you're providing a star story, make sure you're quantifying the results. There are a lot of times where I ask questions to interviewers and they'll tell me the situation, they'll tell me the task, their action, and they're not saying any of the results. If you were able to improve a process, if you're able to save costs, if you're able to generate revenue, let me know the exact numbers. Numbers speak volume. So make sure that you're providing those results. And one of the other tips that I provide, make sure you're highlighting what you did specifically. So a lot of times when I'm interviewing candidates, they'll say, we did this, we did that. And naturally, when you're working and on a team, whether it's in school, whether it's at your job, you're not working by yourself. You're doing something collectively with other people. But you had specific tasks that you worked on in that project or that deliverable. So make sure you highlight what you did. Say, I did this, I did that. So that way I can understand what your role is. And I'm not assuming that you may just be talking in general about something that a team did, and you may not have necessarily had any tasks in that particular work. So make sure to highlight what you did specifically. Do your research. This is critical. So when I say do your research, before you show up to the conference, you should know what companies are going to be there and what roles those companies are searching to hire people for. So, like I said in my example before, I've been in the conference on the other side of the table where I'm showing up on behalf of my company and I'm doing recruiting interviewing. And when someone walks up to my booth and says, "Hey, what do you have to offer me? I do marketing. What do you have for me? I do finance. What do you have for me?" You haven't done your due diligence. Whereas if you come to my booth and you say, "Hey, I'm really passionate about Chevron. I'm really passionate about Amazon. I would love to learn more about your finance MBA program. I'd love to learn more about your program management role. I see that you're hiring for this. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?" Now that shows that you've done your research, you know what specific role that you're looking for, as opposed to you're just walking around and asking companies, what do you have that aligns with my skill set? Or what do you have that aligns with this type of role? So make sure that you're doing your research, you're doing your due diligence. And I'll get into the doing the research more in the next slide, but it's definitely critical that you're doing your research and you know what companies will be there and you know what roles are available. And when I say know the company, understand the company's mission statement, their vision, their customers, their competitors. Like, really know the company. It's important that you show that you care about that particular company that you're talking to, and you're not just walking and talking to any company. You have to show like why you're passionate and interested in the specific company that you're speaking to. Okay. Apply for roles ahead of time. So National Black MBA is a great opportunity to interview on site at a conference. I mean, any career fair has opportunities where you can interview, but don't assume that you have to get interview slots when you get to the conference. Some companies will allow you to apply for roles ahead of time and potentially land interview slots. So make sure you're going onto the National Black MBA website. You're searching for roles that are interesting to you. You're applying for roles. You're trying to set up interviews whenever possible. Some companies will expect you to go to the career expo and they'll want to talk to you first and vet you before they set up an interview slot. But there are opportunities for you to set up an interview slot before you even get to the conference. And that's part of doing your research. Part of doing your due diligence. So that's why I said the work for the conference, it starts today. Don't wait until the conference to start doing these initiatives. You can start doing these today. When we get off this call today, as I said, I want you to have call to actions. So make sure you're doing your research on what companies are there, what roles are available, and start applying to those roles. Okay? And then last but not least, leverage your network. So most of you in here are all part of the National Black MBA Association. You may be at the Austin chapter, you may be a part of the DC chapter, you may be part of different chapters. We shouldn't be fighting against each other or competing for roles. We should help each other out. There's enough roles for everybody. So I've given guidance on you should prepare your elevator pitch. You should update your resume. You should work on your star stories. Leverage one another. Reach out to people. Ask them, hey, can you give me feedback on my resume? Can you give me feedback on my elevator pitch? And remember, networking is a two-way street. Don't just reach out to people and ask with, can you do this for me? Make sure you're giving for them too. What can I do to assist you for the conference? Can I help you with your resume? Can I help you with interview prep? Definitely leverage each other. If there's a company that you identify that will be at the conference and you know someone in your network that has worked at that company before or currently works at that company, reach out to them. Ask them questions. Like, hey, I'm interested in working for your company. I know they're going to be at this conference. Can you give me some insight on what the interviews are typically for that company? You know, can you give me some insight? Like, what do you enjoy about working at that company? And having those conversations with people will really help hit the ground running when you go to the conference and you're able to talk to that company face to face. So make sure you leverage your network, leverage each other. Look at who's dialed into this meeting today. Feel free to write down people's names, reach out to them on LinkedIn, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and leverage each other so we can all be successful. We can all get our dream jobs. We should be working collectively as a team. So make sure to think about that. Okay. Any questions or comments before I get to the next slide? All right. Jump right into it. So during the conference, I have a lot of pieces of advice as well. So first and foremost, you want to dress appropriately. First impressions are everything. So this is a part of the elevator pitch that I talked about in the previous slide. This is a part of making sure that you're dressed appropriately. I would recommend wearing a suit. You'd be surprised how many times I've been to this conference. I'll see someone in jeans and a t-shirt and just dressed very casual, and it's a first impression. And if I see someone that's dressed to impress and they have a suit on and they're eager and they're there early, it makes a world of difference. So really think about your attire. Think about what you want to wear for the conference. The second item, show up early. So one of the quotes that one of my mentors told me a long time ago that I've stuck with, to be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late. To be late is unacceptable. Okay? So as an attendee, when I used to attend the conference, the Career Expo is generally on Thursday and Friday. If the doors open up at 9 a.m. on Thursday, I was there at 8 a.m. At 8 a.m., I would get breakfast. I was sitting outside until the doors open. I'm going through my star stories. I'm going through my elevator pitch. And when the doors open at 9, I'm ready to go. So you have to take in consideration that there's a limited number of interview slots. And as someone that's doing the recruiting, as I said, I've been on both sides of the table. If someone comes up to my table on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, I've probably already filled all the interview slots and I've probably already started doing my interviews. So I'll have conversation with you, but the chances of you being able to interview for the role that you're looking for it may be minimal at that point. I may have already spoken to hundreds of candidates. But if you're interested in the company and the doors open at 9 and at 10 a.m., you come over to my booth and you show excitement, that's a whole different story. That shows that you're excited, you're passionate, you're there early, and this is clearly one of the companies that you're interested in because you showed up early. And there's still plenty of slots available. You showed your interest, and now I have the potential to provide you with the interview slot. So it makes a world of difference if you show up early. So definitely think about that. Next item, have a game plan. So this ties in with what I talked about in the last slide, where you have to do your research, you have to do your due diligence. So when I was an attendee, when I would go to this conference, I would do research and I would identify a top 5 list. I want to talk to company A, B, C, D, E. These are my top 5 companies I want to speak to. When the door was open, I wouldn't go to those 5 immediately. And this is just my recommendation. So I may have a company that I'm on the fence about. It may be number 6 or number 7 on the list. I would go talk to number 6 or number 7 on the list first. And this is just to get your nerves out. This will get you a little bit more comfortable. So you still care about that company, but it's not your number one company that you want to speak to. It's it can be tough, like to walk like the first company you go to is your number one company because you may not be comfortable. So I would recommend going to a company that you care about. It may not be in your top 5. Get get the bugs out of your stomach, the butterflies out of your stomach, how they say it, and you could practice your elevator pitch. You can feel a little bit more comfortable talking. And once you've talked to 1 or 2 companies, okay, now I feel comfortable. Now I'm ready to go. I know what my top 5 companies are. I feel comfortable. I've already started speaking to a few companies. Let me go talk to my top 5. So you want to have a game plan. That all goes back to doing your research. Know what companies are going to be there. Know which companies you want to talk to. Know what roles you're looking for. And that way, when you go to the conference, you can hit the ground running, as opposed to you just walking around aimlessly, hoping that you see a company or a role that may be a good fit. That's not going to be the best use of your time. So when you're at the conference, you want to have a game plan, who you want to attack, what roles you're looking for. Leverage your network again. So I know I talked about leveraging your network in preparing, but leverage your network while you're there as well. So as I said, we should all be working together. If I'm an attendee and I go up to a booth and I talk to a company and they have great marketing opportunities, and I know, let's take Eugene for instance. I know Eugene is interested in marketing. I'll reach out to Eugene and say, hey, I know you told me that you're interested in marketing. Conagra has some great roles and opportunities. I think they would be right up your alley. You should go talk to Conagra. And that way we're helping one another. Like I said, this doesn't have to be a competition where I'm just trying to get a job for myself. We can help each other all get jobs. So I'll share a story with you. When I went to the National Black MBA Conference, I was at Carnegie Mellon. One of my classmates used to work at Chevron. I told him at the conference that I landed a job interview with Chevron. He pulled me to the side and he prepped me for the interview. And he told me things about Chevron that you would only know if you actually worked there, things that you wouldn't find online on a website doing your research. And then when I had the interview with Chevron, I knocked it out the park. My interviewers literally asked me, how did I know some of the things that I told them? And I laughed it off and I said, oh, I've done my research. And I did do my research. I did do my due diligence, but it was also my network that helped me. My friend Darren, he could have been focused on himself. He was at the conference as well. He could have been focused on talking to companies and landing interviews and preparing. But the fact that he helped me made sure that I was successful as well. And I've returned the favor for him. And like I said, networking is a two-way street, but don't feel as though you're at this conference by yourself. Work with one another, leverage each other. And this will make sure that everybody's successful. And sometimes, honestly, you may just want to decompress. The conference, it's a long conference. It's The Career Expo is 2 days. It's 8 hours on Thursday, 8 hours on Friday. Sometimes you may just want to take a step away and talk to somebody and decompress and get ready to go back in there. But definitely leverage your network as much as possible. Okay. Next, explain your fit. So the most important thing is that you have to explain to companies why you're a good fit for the role. Based off your work experiences, based off your education background, why do you believe that you can get this job done? Why are you a good fit for the role? But you also have to answer, why are you a good fit for the company? Every company has a different company culture, has different values. So you have to talk about what your values are and how your values align with the company values. Why are you a good fit for the company as a whole? So make sure to think about that. And I'll get into that further into this in this slide, but think about not only why are you a good fit for the role, why are you a good fit for the company? You want to express your enthusiasm, you want your personality to shine. This gets into first impressions. If you come over to my booth, my table, and you're excited, you're passionate, you show that you're interested in the role, and you let your personality shine, that can that can be the difference of whether or not you get an interview or you get the job. So you have to understand, as an interviewer at this conference, I literally meet hundreds of candidates, and more than one candidate may potentially be able to do the job. I'm not just hiring someone that can do the job, I'm hiring someone that I can see myself working with on a day-to-day basis. So if you let your personality shine, if you find a way to connect with me and you show that you can do the job and you show that you're a good fit for the company, that's what's going to differentiate you. So you have to go in there with energy, with enthusiasm, show you're passionate, be yourself, like let your personality shine. That will be a world of difference. Right? Know why you want to work for the company. You would be surprised. This is a question that a lot of people get tripped up on. So, as an example, as I said, I worked at Chevron. Through the conference, I was able to get a job at Chevron. And then once I started working for Chevron, I went to the conference 4 years in a row at Chevron to do recruiting for them. And every interview I had for Chevron, when I was interviewing candidates, I'd always end with the question, why do you want to work for Chevron? I've had people answer me and say, oh, I love the city of Houston. That has nothing to do with Chevron. First of all, when we hire candidates for Chevron, we don't tell them location. We could place them in Houston. We could place them in the Bay Area. We could place them in Pennsylvania. We could place them in refineries, in Richmond, in like all these different places. So you're not even guaranteed to go to Houston. So for you to say the reason you want to work for Chevron is because you like the city of Houston, that doesn't tell me why you want to work for Chevron. Or I've had candidates tell me, "Oh, you're one of the biggest oil and gas companies." Okay, so is Shell, so is Exxon, so is BP. That doesn't tell me why you want to work for Chevron. So look at the company's mission, their values, and find something specific on why you want to work for that company. So if I went up to Chevron and I said, "Hey, I really care about sustainability. I love what Chevron's doing to reduce their carbon footprint. I love all these different initiatives, and that's the type of company that I want to work for." Like that shows that you've done your due diligence, and that says why you want to work for Chevron specifically. You're doing research on what Chevron's doing from a sustainability standpoint. You care about sustainability, and it aligns with your values. Or if I'm a candidate and I went up to Chevron and I said, ethics is very important to me. And I know at Chevron, they talk about the Chevron way and they want to do things the right way every single time. And that's the type of company I want to work for because ethics is important. And I want to make sure when I'm working with a company that they're doing things the right way. And I want to bring that and that aligns with my values. Like that's specific to Chevron. I've just talked about the Chevron value. I pulled in their vision, their mission statement into why I want to work for them. So those are the things that will really elevate you. Like I said, I've had candidates that I interviewed that had great interviews, And the last question, when I asked them why they want to work for my company, they couldn't answer that piece. And at that point, it just sounds as though, okay, you practice your star stories and you're just talking to any company that will give you a job. You need to make sure that you have a specific reason that you want to work for that company that you're talking to. Okay? And last but not least, build rapport. This sounds very simple, but this can make a big world of difference. So when I say build rapport, like I said, the most important thing is that you show that you're a good fit for the role, that you're a good fit for the company culture. But if you can find some way to connect with people at the company, that can make a world of difference. So think of, maybe you have the same hobbies as somebody. Maybe you went to the same alma mater. Maybe you're from the same city. So when I'm talking to different representatives, I'll add in what schools I went to. I'll add in, hey, I live in Austin, but I'm originally from New York. And then if I find out that someone else is from New York, like, it's so good to meet a fellow New Yorker. What part of New York are you from? And then we can get into conversations. Or it's like, oh, you're also a Carnegie Mellon alumni? Well, when did you graduate? Oh, it's so good to meet another Carnegie Mellon alumni. Where in Pittsburgh did you live? So now I'm building a connection with that person. I've already showed them I can do the job. I already showed them that I'm a good fit for the company. And now I'm building that rapport where, like I said, a lot of times I'm not just hiring somebody who I know can do the job. I'm hiring someone that I can see myself working with on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm able to build that rapport with somebody, that can be a way to differentiate myself. And now they'll remember me like, oh yeah, I remember talking to Michael. Oh yeah, he's also went to Carnegie Mellon. Oh yeah, he's also from New York. Oh, he also lives in Austin. Oh, he's a basketball fan. We were talking about how the basketball season's starting. He's a football fan. He's excited how the NFL season just started. Whatever your hobby is, whatever connection, rapport to have with that individual, it's going to help you stand out. Okay? And then also, so building the rapport at the expo, you have the career fair where you're walking around, you go to different booths and be able to talk to different companies. Obviously, there's interviews. There's a completely different interview room. So there's one area where you can just do the career expo and you can walk around and talk to companies. There's a separate area where companies are all doing interviews with candidates, and there's also some private events. So sometimes you may, talk to a company. They may invite you to a happy hour where they're only inviting a handful of candidates that they want to get to know more, and that's other opportunities where you can build that rapport. So whether it's at the expo, talking to companies at the booth, whether it's during the interview, whether it's at these private events, you want to try to build connection with people. First and foremost, the most important thing is that you're showing that you can do the role and that you fit for the company, but you also want to let your personality shine and get to know them as individuals and build rapport and try to find connections. Okay? And then last but not least, after the conference. So this sounds like a very simple item. A lot of people do not do it. If you're able to get an interview, you want to make sure to send a thank you to the interviewers. And even if you don't get an interview, if you just get someone's contact information from speaking with them at a booth, definitely get their information and just thank them for their time. Like people that are going to this conference, everyone that goes to this conference does not work in HR, does not work in recruiting. I don't work in HR. I've worked in supply chain, I've worked in operations, I've worked in strategy. I'm still going to this conference and doing this. This is above and beyond my job. So it makes a world of difference when you reach out and you say thank you. You can say thank you through email. At the conference, I've interviewed someone Friday morning, Friday afternoon. They came back to my booth and handed me a handwritten note saying thank you for the time to interview them. That candidate's going to stand out. The fact that they wrote a handwritten note and handed it to me, that makes a huge difference. And on top of saying thank you, this is where building the rapport ties in. So, as an example, I can send a thank you email and I can keep it generic. I could say, oh, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I learned so much about your company. I'd love the opportunity to work with you in the future. I hope to hear from you soon. That's a generic email. it's good that you send a thank you email, but it's very generic. You can copy and paste that and send that out to 10 different companies and 10 different people that you met. If I say, hey, it was a pleasure meeting you. It's always good to meet a Carnegie Mellon alumni. I learned so much from you. I'd love to connect again. I hope you enjoy your travels back to Houston. Well, now my thank you email is getting more specific. I've clearly like met with you. We talked about the fact that we both went to Carnegie Mellon. You brought up the fact that you live in Houston. So now I'm putting in specific blurbs into my thank you email when I send that out to them. And now they'll remember me specifically. Oh, this is Michael. Oh, yeah, we had this conversation. Michael is the one that is a Carnegie Mellon alumni. He's the one thanking me for the time. Oh, Michael's the one I talked to about basketball or football. Michael's the one that has a hobby in running and he runs marathons. So if you're able to add in those blurbs, it makes a world of difference. So one of the tricks that I used to do at the conference, when I would go up to companies, I would get people's business cards. On the back of their business card, I would write down tidbits of our conversation. So maybe we talked about where we're from. They told me they were from Houston. They told me they live in Atlanta. They told me they like basketball. We connected because we're both from New York. I'll write little tidbits about our conversation. And that way, when I follow up, I can add those tidbits into my thank you email or into my message on LinkedIn. And that way, they remember me specifically, as opposed to just putting a generic message. Oh, it was great meeting you. I'd love to connect. So think about building that rapport. It it's a small thing to do, but it makes a world of difference. You want to make sure to leverage LinkedIn. So, connect with people as much as possible. I gave an example of getting people's business cards and writing on the back of business cards. A lot of conferences I go to now, people just want to scan your phone and scan your QR code for LinkedIn. Even if you scan someone's QR code for LinkedIn, you can go into the notes section of your phone, type in tidbits of your conversation. Maybe there's something that you can, reach out to them, send them a message, something that you connected on. But whether it's an email, whether it's LinkedIn, you want to make sure you connect with somebody. Even if you may not get the role that you were interviewing for or applying for, a connection can open up doors and opportunities, and you never know what a connection may lead to. Maybe it leads to another opportunity. But definitely you want to make sure that you connect with people. And then last but not least, you I would say don't be offended. So there may be times where people don't want to give you their business card, they don't want to give you their email, they don't want to give you your LinkedIn. It is not anything at you specifically. You have to understand that people have full-time jobs. They have to go back. They're taking time off of work. They have to go back to work. They have to catch up on all their emails. They don't want to be bombarded with hundreds of emails and messages. So some people don't feel comfortable sharing their contact information. That's not a knock towards you specifically, but that's just some people's mindset, methodology. They don't always want to share their information, but just make sure, just don't feel offended. If someone's willing to share their information with you, take it. If they're not, just put yourself in their shoes and understand the rationale of why they may not want to. But I've had colleagues that I've attended these conferences with that were adamant about not bringing their business cards, not sharing their information because they just didn't want to get bombarded. So you may hear people that will say no, but I still recommend that you at least ask. Okay.
All right, Mike. You're giving them $1 million worth of game, and you could probably give them 2 million, but we got to stop there. We can't give all the game out right here. We got to give 'em reasons to show up to other events.